This video depicts topics of violence, murder, and death and is not suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Saint Sebastian is a revered Christian martyr and saint, venerated both in the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches. He is celebrated for his steadfast faith and is often invoked as a protector against plagues. His feast day is observed on January 20th every year. Saint Sebastian is believed to have been born in Narbonne, Gaul, modern-day France, around the 3rd century AD, but he grew up in Milan, Italy. Though little is known about his early life, he was a devout Christian during a time when Christianity was persecuted under Roman rule. Sebastian enlisted in the Roman Imperial Army around the reign of Emperor Diocletian, who was known for his intense persecution of Christians. His reasons for joining the army were strategic. He aimed to support and comfort imprisoned Christians while remaining discreet about his faith. His courage, loyalty, and leadership earned him the rank of captain of the Praetorian Guard. Sebastian's faith was eventually discovered, and he was condemned to death by Emperor Diocletian. He was tied to a tree or post and shot with numerous arrows, often depicted in art as his first martyrdom. Left for dead, he miraculously survived and was nursed back to health by a Christian widow named Irene of Rome. Rather than flee, Sebastian confronted Diocletian, denouncing the emperor's cruelty. This act of defiance led to his second execution. He was beaten to death with clubs and his body was thrown into the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's main sewer. Christians later retrieved his body and buried him in the catacombs of Saint Sebastiano. Saint Sebastian's story of resilience and faith made him an enduring symbol of courage. He is often depicted in art as a youthful figure, bound and pierced with arrows. Over the centuries, he became associated with protection against plagues, as many believed his intercession helped end epidemics. The Basilica of San Sebastiano fuori le mura in Rome was built on the site of his burial and remains a major pilgrimage site. His story has inspired countless works of art, including masterpieces by renowned artists such as Andrea Mantegna and El Greco. Saint Sebastian is the patron saint of athletes, soldiers, and those seeking protection from illness, making him a figure of hope and perseverance for Christians worldwide. Saint Sebastian's iconography has been richly developed through centuries of Christian art and symbolism, particularly due to the dramatic and poignant nature of his martyrdom. His representation as a saint has remained relatively consistent, with specific symbols, poses, and elements associated with his depiction. Here is a brief but exhaustive description of the iconography of Saint Sebastian. When it comes to his position and stance, he's often bound or tied to a tree or post. Saint Sebastian is often depicted as tied to a post or tree in a standing or semi-reclining posture. His body is often shown as though he is preparing to die, either in a state of serene acceptance or intense suffering. The binding is symbolic of his martyrdom, echoing the idea of being a faithful servant of God under extreme conditions. He's also sometimes shown in a vertical position. In some of these representations, he is shown as a standing upright and standing, while others may depict him reclining or leaning against the post or tree, with his legs sometimes bent at angles. His most common iconographic element is arrows that pierce his body, a reflection of his first execution attempt. The arrows are typically shown embedded in his flesh in various poses, often in a symmetrical arrangement piercing his chest, sides, and limbs. In some instances, they are depicted as part of a halo or aura, symbolizing his connection to the divine suffering and protection. In many depictions, he's shown nude or semi-nude in the representations. Saint Sebastian is frequently shown in a nude or semi-nude state, highlighting both his physical vulnerability and the martyrdom's bodily sacrifice. The nudity can symbolize purity, the shedding of worldly concerns, and a connection to Christ's suffering. His body is typically portrayed as youthful, athletic, and idealized, with an emphasis on muscularity. His exposed chest may also be an expression of Christian belief in the resurrection of the body and the triumph of the soul over physical death. Sometimes he is adorned with a small cloth or loincloth draped over his waist or hips, sometimes with a thin cloth across his lower body, which adds a modest element to his suffering. The drapery can also be interpreted as a sign of purity and virginity. As indicated earlier, some of the iconography will show multiple arrows. This is one of the most significant features of Saint Sebastian's iconography is, of course, the arrow that pierce his body. They are typically shown as sharp, long, and numerous, underscoring the cruelty of his first martyrdom. The arrows, often 18 or more, are symbolic not only of his martyrdom, but also the spiritual penetration, representing the idea of Christ's suffering, as Sebastian was seen as a Christ-like figure in this context. The arrows also can be shown in different arrangements. They may be clustered together or individually placed, often targeting the torso, shoulder, and legs. The position and number of arrows can vary, but they are often positioned so as to maintain a graceful symmetry, creating a balanced visual aesthetic. When it comes to his facial expression, Saint Sebastian is generally depicted with a serene or calm expression on his face, conveying his inner peace and acceptance of his suffering. His facial features are often portrayed as youthful, almost angelic, suggesting his purity and commitment to Christ. He often has closed or slightly opened eyes, giving him a calm, almost transcendental appearance, in contrast to the violence of the arrows piercing his body. In some instances, he is shown suffering or in agony. In these depictions, especially from later periods, his expressions can convey the agony that he must have gone through, a more dramatic portrayal of his suffering. The pain is shown in his contorted features, with furrowed brows and mouth slightly open in a silent cry, illustrating the physical torment he endured. In other scenes, we will depict the arrow shooting scene or healing, or after the arrow was shot. In some artistic representations, the scenes included the soldiers or archers who shot the arrows at Saint Sebastian's. In these depictions, Sebastian may be shown facing towards his body, pierced by arrows, sometimes gazing at the soldiers or directly engaging the viewer. This representation underscores the martyrdom and bravery of the saints as he faces his executioners, often highlighted by the soldier's distant or indifferent expression. As mentioned earlier, some scenes show Saint Sebastian surviving. As per the story of his miraculous survival and recovery, some depictions show the saint as being rescued by a Christian widow named Irene of Rome. He may be depicted in a more restorative scene where he is being cared for or healing. This is often seen in a representation of his second life after the arrows are removed from his body. These depictions reflect the idea of divine intervention, as Saint Sebastian is shown rising from what should have been certain death. In many of his iconography, you will see the martyr's palm and wounds. Occasionally, a palm branch may be shown near Saint Sebastian on or around his hand, symbolizing his martyrdom and victory over death. The palm is a traditional Christian symbol for victory, highlights his triumph in faith even unto death, while his other depictions show his wounds and blood, which is a recurrent theme in Saint Sebastian's iconography. His body may be shown with bleeding punctures, and his skin is often shown with reddened or broken areas where the arrows have struck. The depiction of these wounds emphasize the violence of his martyrdom and the suffering he must have endured. In certain iconography, angels and divine symbols are shown. In some versions, Saint Sebastian is depicted with angels surrounding him, either attending to his wounds or showing divine protection. Angels are sometimes seen removing the arrows or supporting him in his suffering. Like many saints, Saint Sebastian is typically shown with a halo representing his holiness and divine favor. The halo may sometimes be incorporated or be made of the arrows themselves, highlighting his status as a martyr. In many of the iconography, the background and setting includes Rome and the Catholic catacombs that they're there. Saint Sebastian's iconography often places him within a Roman context, sometimes depicted with architectural elements such as columns, arches, or the Roman countryside, alluding to his Roman persecution. Catacombs are occasionally set, or burial sites are subtly included in the background to reference his eventual burial by Christian followers. Some depictions also show the saint in natural landscapes, representing his peaceful acceptance and connection to the divine. As alluded to earlier, the duality of Saint Sebastian is often shown. Many symbols of his strength and suffering are shown in the iconography of Saint Sebastian, which often combines themes of his physical strength, as seen with his useful muscular body, with his spiritual suffering. He is a dual symbol of martyrdom, physical torment, and spiritual purity, his calm and serene demeanor. Of course, like many iconography, it has developed and has different historical and artistic variations. Early Christian depictions generally portrayed Saint Sebastian in more stylized forms, often with minimal details. During the Renaissance period, however, especially works by artists like Andrea Mantegna and Piero della Francesca, the iconography of Saint Sebastian became more dramatic and anatomically detailed, highlighting the aesthetic beauty of the human body, even in suffering. These artists often sought to balance the heroic nature of his suffering with an emphasis on naturalism and beauty. In Baroque art, like that of Guido Reni, Saint Sebastian is shown with highly emotional expressions, deep shadows, and intense contrasts of light, emphasizing the dramatic aspects of his martyrdom. Many attributes and symbols are included. Of course, as mentioned many times, arrows are symbols of Christ's suffering, are shown and interpreted not just as weapons, but as spiritual symbols to relate to Christ's own suffering, as Sebastian's martyrdom was seen as a reflection of Christ's passion. Christian symbols of protection have over time included arrows, and Saint Sebastian's image became associated with protection against plagues, as he was often invoked during times of epidemics. In this context, Saint Sebastian was seen as a figure who could ward off illness and suffering. In conclusion, Saint Sebastian's iconography is rich with symbolism and conveys a complex blend of suffering, strength, purity, and divine protection. His depiction often combines elements of physical beauty, spiritual victory, and intense martyrdom, creating an enduring image that transcends time and place. From early Christian representations to Renaissance masterpiece, Saint Sebastian remains a central figure in Christian iconography, embodying the ideal of sacrificial love and unwavering faith. Saint Sebastian, celebrated as a martyr, is not only venerated for his physical endurance and courage in the face of torture, but also revered for his ability to intercede for those in need. Over the centuries, he became a figure associated with various miracles, particularly those related to healing, protection from epidemics, and the salvation of individuals facing dire circumstances. While many of the miracles attributed to Saint Sebastian come from posthumous traditions, they played a significant role in shaping his legacy. Saint Sebastian is especially renowned for his intercessory powers, particularly in relation to healing physical ailments, with plagues being the most common affliction for which his aid was sought. The first example is the miracle of recovery from the first martyrdom. The most well-known miracle associated with Saint Sebastian is his survival of the first martyrdom. After being shot full of arrows by Roman archers, he was left for dead. However, he miraculously survived and was healed by a Christian widow by the name of Irene of Rome. This occurred in Rome on the 3rd century AD. Despite being left for dead after his first execution attempt, Saint Sebastian was found by Irene, who took him in and nursed him back to health. This event is viewed as a powerful miracle of divine intervention. His recovery was seen as a sign of God's grace, and he became a figure of spiritual strength and miraculous healing. Irene's role in this healing solidified her association with Saint Sebastian, and she became known as one of his primary devotees. Another example of a miracle performed by Saint Sebastian is the protection against the plague. in Rome 600 AD. After a devastating plague struck Rome, according to tradition, Saint Sebastian's intercession helped to protect the city and its people from the ravages of the disease. The Roman people, in desperation, turned to Saint Sebastian, praying for his protection and intercession to end the plague. The local bishop reportedly led a procession invoking the saint, and soon after, the epidemic began to subside. This event further cemented Saint Sebastian's reputation as protector against the plague and illnesses in general. The Basilica of Saint Sebastian in Rome became a central place of worship for those seeking his protection during epidemics. A third example is the plague of 1300 and the miracle of protection. Another plague miracle attributed to Saint Sebastian occurred in 1300 when a severe plague again threatened Rome. Following the outbreak of the plague, a procession was made to the Basilica of San Sebastiano. The people sought the saint's intervention, believing that his intercession would halt the disease. As the procession continued, the plague spread was said to have miraculously slowed. This event significantly contributed to the devotion to Saint Sebastian and his continued association with protection against pestilence. Another type of miracle is the protection of soldiers and warriors. Saint Sebastian, who was a soldier himself in the Roman army before his martyrdom, became a patron of soldiers. Miracles attributed to him include instances where soldiers or warriors prayed to him for victory or divine protection. One example is the miracle of Saint Sebastian's intercession for a soldier. A story from the Middle Ages recounts that a French knight was saved during a battle after invoking Saint Sebastian for protection. This occurred in France in the 14th century. This knight, who was about to be unalived in combat, prayed to Saint Sebastian for help. He was miraculously spared from death and later attributed to his survival to the saint's intercession. This story spread, and the knight became one of the many who sought Saint Sebastian's protection before going to war. Another example is a victory in battle, where another miracle involves a battle in Germany in the 15th century. According to this tradition, a German army was on the verge of defeat when one of the soldiers, inspired by his faith in Saint Sebastian, prayed to the martyr for victory. Miraculously, the tide of battle turned in the favor of the soldiers, and they were able to win. Saint Sebastian's image was then widely used as a symbol of courage in warfare, and his intercession was sought by soldiers in future battles. Another type of miracle is a protection against accusations. Saint Sebastian is often depicted as a patron saint of falsely accused individuals, believed to help protection for individuals who were unjustly accused of crimes or misdeeds. Several miracles stories describe him as intervening in such situations. For example, in the 12th century in Italy, a man was falsely accused of a crime and was about to be executed for it. The man, in desperation, prayed to Saint Sebastian, asking for his help. The saint miraculously intervened, and the true criminal was revealed, exonerating the accused. The man attributed his deliverance to Saint Sebastian's divine assistance, and his story spread as an example of his powerful intercession for the innocent. There are, of course, many miracles associated to visions and appearances. Throughout history, numerous individuals reported having visions or dreams involving Saint Sebastian. These experiences often led to a miraculous healing or a sense of divine favor. One such example is a vision of Saint Sebastian healing a child in Spain during the 16th century, where a child who had been suffering from a severe illness reportedly had a vision of Saint Sebastian while praying for a cure. The child's parents were desperate, and after praying to Saint Sebastian, the child experienced a miraculous vision in which the saint appeared to him, reassuring him and promising healing. Soon after the vision, the child's health dramatically improved and he was cured. This event was widely reported, and it became yet another example of Saint Sebastian's miraculous healing powers. Another example is that of a dying man in the 17th century Italy was reportedly saved through the intercession of Saint Sebastian. On his deathbed, the man called out to Saint Sebastian for mercy. According to the story, the saint appeared in a vision, telling him that his suffering was over and that he would not pass away. The man reportedly recovered and lived for several more years, attributing to his recovery entirely to the saint's miraculous intervention. Finally, there are many examples of the role in protecting Christians from Roman persecution by Saint Sebastian. Saint Sebastian is sometimes credited with miraculous interventions in situations involving Christian persecutions, particularly in ancient Rome. His role is in offering divine protection or aiding persecuted Christians has been a strong part of his legacy. An example of this is a miracle of protection during Roman persecution in the 3rd century. Saint Sebastian himself was involved in a miracle during his own lifetime, including protecting early Christians during Roman persecution under Emperor Diocletian. During the period when Christians were being hunted down, Saint Sebastian, despite being a soldier in the Roman army, would secretly visit Christian prisoners, offering them aid and encouragement. According to legend, his intervention saved many Christians from execution, as his presence helped them to escape or avoid detection. These acts of mercy and courage were seen as miraculous at the time, as he risked his own life to protect his fellow believers. In conclusion, the miracles attributed to Saint Sebastian span a wide range of intercessions, from healing plagues to providing protection in battle, from safeguarding the innocent to appearing in visions to heal the sick. His legacy as a protector against disease and martyr for faith continues to inspire devotion and awe among Christians. The various miracle stories have contributed to his canonization and widespread veneration, solidifying his role as a powerful intercessor and an enduring symbol of faith, courage, and divine intervention. The canonization process for Saint Sebastian, like many early Christian saints, is shrouded in history that was shaped by both tradition and the evolving structure of the Catholic Church. The formal canonization process, as we know it today, did not exist in the same way during the time of Saint Sebastian's life or passing. Nevertheless, his recognition as a saint was marked by a gradual accumulation of veneration, formal recognition by local churches, and eventual official canonization by the Church. Here's a brief but exhaustive description of the process of Saint Sebastian's canonization, including key events, people, and places. The early veneration of Saint Sebastian is believed to have begun shortly after his passing. due to his martyrdom and miraculous recovery after being struck by arrows. While there was no official record of the canonization process in the early years, his cult, in other words, the public devotion to him as a saint, began in Rome and spread across the Christian world. This occurred in the 3rd century, shortly after his passing in 288 AD at the catacombs of Saint Sebastian in Rome. Saint Sebastian was buried in the catacombs of San Sebastiano in the Via Appia in Rome, marking the beginning of his local veneration. Christians in the area would have visited his tomb, prayed for his intercession, and celebrated his life. It is from this early tradition in Christian community that the seed of his canonizations were sown, with devotees believing that his martyrdom, recovery from passing, and his later miracles made him a figure of significant sanctity. By the 4th century, the veneration of Saint Sebastian was already widespread in Rome. He was recognized as a martyr and protector, particularly against plagues, and the many early Christians' writings and sources alluded to his sanctity and intercessory powers. Early Christian sources mention Saint Sebastian in connection with his intercessory powers, particularly in ending plagues. The Basilica of Saint Sebastian was built at his tomb in the 4th century during the reign of Emperor Constantine in 324 AD. This church, alongside the catacombs of San Sebastiano, became a major pilgrimage site, reinforcing his growing popularity as a saint. As the Catholic Church grew and formalized its procedures for recognizing saints, the canonization process evolved. However, during Saint Sebastian's time, the formal canonization, as understood today, was not yet in place. This process only began to take form much later in the medieval period, when the papal canonization system started to be developed. Saint Sebastian was a popular saint throughout the Middle Ages, particularly in the context of his association with plague relief and protection during times of war. However, the formal papal recognition of his canonization did not occur during these centuries. He was only recognized primarily by local cult. In the 10th century AD in Rome and medieval Europe, Saint Sebastian's veneration continued to grow throughout medieval Europe, particularly during times of plagues. The Church, particularly in Rome, began to recognize his sanctity and his role as protector, but his canonization was still not formalized. During this period, the concept of papal canonization was still developing. Saint Sebastian was widely invoked in prayers for protection against plagues, a major source of his popularity in medieval world. By the 12th century, Saint Sebastian's cult had expanded throughout Europe, and he was often depicted in art and worship in various regions, particularly in places ravaged by disease. Though not yet formally canonized, his martyrdom and the miracles attributed to his intercession were widely recognized, leading to increasing devotion, particularly in Italy and France. During the 12th century, the Church saw expansion of his cult, especially due to the recurring plagues in Europe. His feast day was celebrated on January 12th, becoming a widespread observance. Churches dedicated to Saint Sebastian were built across Europe, further establishing his status as a saint. The actual formal canonization of Saint Sebastian did not occur until much later, likely because he was already widely revered and recognized as a saint by the Church. However, the papacy's formal recognition of Sebastian's sainthood came after centuries of devotion, and historical sources suggest that his canonization was ratified at some point after the Middle Ages. By the 16th century, the development of papal canonization process had made it had made it possible for saints to be officially declared as such by the Pope. Though there is no exact record of Pope Gregory XIII or any other pope directly canonizing Saint Sebastian during this period, he was widely regarded as a saint by the Church. The official process for canonization had become formalized during the later part of the century, and many saints were already popular among the faithful, like Saint Sebastian, who were retroactively given official recognition. Although there is no specific records of the exact date or papal document formally canonizing Saint Sebastian, by the Middle Ages, his status as a canonized saint was well established due to widespread veneration and the recognition of his martyrdom, miracles, and intercessory powers. His feast day on January 20th was firmly fixed in the liturgical calendar, and he was formally recognized as a patron saint of soldiers, athletes, and those suffering from the plague. Although there is no documented date of canonization for Saint Sebastian, his position as a saint was affirmed by centuries of widespread veneration and official recognition by the Catholic Church. His miracles, feast day, and patronage continue to be celebrated, culminating in a cult of Saint Sebastian, becoming an enduring part of Christian faith. His canonization is thus a reflection of the deep and enduring faith of Catholic Christians who revered him as a protector and intercessor.